Hello and welcome back to Math 121. This is section 1.1 and we're going to be talking about graphs and graphing utilities. What I want to do is, first talk about the objectives. We're going to be plotting points in a rectangular coordinate system. We're going to be graphing equations in the rectangular coordinate system. And then we're going to be using graphs to determine intercepts and then interpret information given by graphs. So what I want to do first is this. I want to talk about, a graph real quick. All right, so let's just draw a generic graph. And a graph is composed of two different number lines, okay? The horizontal number line is called the x-axis. The vertical number line is called the y-axis, okay? And what we do is we can use this concept of a grid to show exact locations of points, okay? So we use the grid. Well, hold on, let's do this. Here's quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, okay? In this, what I know in quadrant 1 is that the x value is positive and the y value is positive. In quadrant 2, I know that the x value is negative and the y value is positive. Quadrant 3, I know that they are both negative, and that in quadrant 4, the x value is positive and the y value is negative, okay? So that's what we have. Now let's just talk real quick about something. A point shows a location on a graph. All right, that's it. That's all a point is. And then if we want to plot points, okay, so plot points, okay, the step for that is that we start at the origin. Start at the origin. Okay, and that's at the point 0, 0. And then we move left or right to plot x, and then up or down to plot y. All right, so and let's real quick here label the origin. The origin is the point 0, 0. Okay, so this is my origin. Okay, and that's the point 0, 0. All right, so that's what we've got here. And what I want to do is go over here on this part of the graph and plot these points and label them with the indicated letter. So what I want to do is plot the point -2, 4. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot -2, 4. Now, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to start at the origin, okay, and the point -2 means that I'm going to go to the left 2, and then I'm going to move up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's my point, and I'm going to label that with the point A, okay? If I look at point B, that's the point 4, -2. So I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm going to go to the right 4 units, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go down 2, so 1, 2. And I'm going to plot a point there, okay, and I'm going to label that point B. All right, point C is the point -3, 0. So that means I'm going to go start at the origin. I'm going to go to the left 3, and then because I have a y value of 0, I'm not going to move up or down. I'm just going to stay on the x-axis, okay? So I'm going to plot a point here and call that point C. Point D is the point 0, -3. All right, so if I start at my origin, and if my x value is 0, I don't move left or right. I stay on my y-axis, but I want to move down 3 units, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, and plot a point here for point D, and I believe that that's it, okay? So all I'm doing there is just plotting these points and, and showing the location of those points, all right? So now, what I want to do is go through and graph a couple of these equations, all right? And there's a specific way to do it right now. We will learn a more efficient way later on this unit. You probably already know how to do this, but what I want to do is go through on how to graph something, a fail-safe way to graph. And when I graph something, I have this equation, okay? And what this is this is a relationship between an x value and a y value, okay? And what this will produce is a line, all right? And I want to go through on how I obtain that. And so let's do this. Let's create a table, all right? And I'm going to choose, you're going to want to write pretty small on this, x and y values. Now I choose x values, okay? These are values that I choose. I just come up with these values off the top of my head, basically. And the standard values that I'm going to use are like -2, -1, 0, 1, and then 2, okay? And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to plug them into my equation, substitute them in for x into my equation here, and it will generate me a y value, okay? So I choose x values, I substitute them into my equation, and it gives me my y values, all right? So let's go through, what is this, y equals 4 minus x. Okay, so that's my equation. So I've got y equals 4 minus x. So the first one I'm going to have is I'm going to let x equal -2. Okay, that was my first value. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace x with -2 in my equation, and then it'll tell me what y is. So I got this. So I got y is equal to 4 minus, and the x value that I'm plugging in is -2. Okay, so I've got y equals 4 minus -2. When you subtract the negative, you're really adding, so y equals 4 plus 2. So then y is equal to 6. Okay, so this value here is 6. All right, now if I plug in -1, so let's let x equal -1. So let x equal -1. I've got y equals 4 minus -1. So that's really going to be y is equal to 4 plus 1. So therefore y is equal to 5. Okay, now I'm going to plug in 0. I'm going to let x equal 0. So let x equal 0. So I'm going to put y is equal to 4 minus 0. 4 minus 0 is just 4. And maybe you're seeing a pattern here. Okay, what do you think is going to happen when I let x equal 1? All right, well, if I let x equal 1, plug it in, I get y equals 4 minus 1, which is going to be 3. Okay, so I don't like the way I wrote that, y equals 3. Okay, what do you think is going to happen when x is equal to 2? Or I'm sorry. Yeah, x is equal to 2, you're going to get a y value of 2. So if you let x equal 2, y equals 4 minus 2, therefore y is equal to 2. All right, so we call this a constant rate of change. You know, as x increases by 1, okay, we notice that y decreases by 1. All right, now the cool thing about this is that this table of values generates points, okay? What you can kind of think about, think about this column here in x, think of this as parentheses and a comma, okay? When you got -2, comma 6, you got -1, comma 5, you got 0, comma 4, okay? You've got 1, comma 3, you've got 2, comma 2. So what I want to do is go through and actually plot these points on the graph, all right? And so let's do this. If I've got the point -2, 6, or -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plot that point. Okay, I'm not going to name it anything because I don't have a name for it. If I plot the point -1, 5, it's going to go here. 0, 4 is here. 1, 3 is here. And 2, 2 is here. Now I could plot more points, but what you're seeing is that we have a line. Okay? And we can connect these dots to the best of our ability. Okay. All right. And that's my line. That's the line y equals 4 minus x. Now, one way to check yourself on this is to plug this into Desmos. So I'm going to go into Desmos and I'm going to type in this equation just as I see it, y equals 4 minus x. Okay, so what I want you to see is that we get the same thing. And on here, it doesn't necessarily plot those points, but I'm going to do a couple. I've got the point negative 2, 6. I've got negative 1, 5, 0, 4, 1, 3, 2, 2. Okay, so all those same points are located here. All right. Now, I encourage you guys to use Desmos. We will be using the other graphing calculators, just the normal ones, just because I'll let you guys use those on exams, okay? And so what I want you to see here, we've got three different things, okay? We've got a table. We have an equation. And we have a graph. These things mean the same thing. It's just different representations of the same idea, okay? So, you know, when you see a table, okay, there's an equation that goes along with it, okay? And there's a graph that goes along with that as well. So all three of those represent the same thing. All right, let's take a look at the next one real quick. I want to graph y equals the absolute value of x plus 1. And let's do this. I want to talk about absolute value real quick. So I'm going to do this over here. I'm going to write absolute value. So find space to write this. Is the distance from 0. Okay, we'll talk more about this, but the distance from 0, distance is always positive, okay? So whatever goes inside of the absolute value is going to always be positive. So same thing's going to happen here, all right? I've got y equals the absolute value of x plus 1. So what I want to do is go through, and I'm going to create a table. And I'm going to choose the same values that I did on the last one. So x values, y values, these are the values I choose. Okay, and I'm going to do negative 2, same ones, negative 1, 0, 1, and then 2, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug those into y equals the absolute value of x plus 1, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in negative 2, so I got let x equal negative 2. So I'm going to plug that in. Y equals the absolute value of negative 2 plus 1. Okay, if I take negative 2 plus 1, that's going to give me negative 1. So I get the absolute value of negative 1. Now, I have to ask myself the question, what's the distance from negative 1 to 0? Okay, and that's going to be a value of 1. So y is equal to 1 here. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Let's let x equal negative 1. So I'm going to put y equals the absolute value of negative 1 plus 1. And that's going to give me y equals the absolute value of 0. So the distance from 0 to 0 is just 0, okay? That's the only value that will be a little bit different. All right, the next one, okay, we're going to let x equal 0. So let x equal 0. So I've got y is equal to the absolute value of 0 plus 1. And that's going to give us that y equals the absolute value of 1. And the absolute value of 1 is just 1. Okay, so make whatever's inside positive. All right, so put 1 here. And then let's plug in 1. So let's let x equal 1. So I've got y is equal to the absolute value of 1 plus 1. And that's going to give us y is equal to the absolute value of 2. So therefore, y is equal to 2. Okay. And then you could probably guess what's going to happen when we plug in 2. All right, so let's let x equal 2. Y is equal to the absolute value of 2 plus 1. And so then y is equal to, move down a little bit, y is equal to the absolute value of 3. So then the absolute value of 3 is just going to be 3. All right, so that's my value that I'm going to plug in here. Okay, so now I have these points. Let's go ahead and plot these on the graph. Remember that these are just coordinate points, all right, x and y values. All right, so going from a table to understanding that these are really just points on a graph, okay, is important. All right, so what I'm going to do is now come over here. I'm going to plot the point negative 2, 1. So negative 2, 1 is going to go here. I've got the point negative 1, 0. I've got the point 0, 1. I've got the point 1, 2. And I've got the point 2, 3. All right, and what I end up having here is I get this V-shaped graph. Okay, and that's kind of what an absolute value graph is going to look like. Okay, and let's go ahead and I'm going to plug that graph into Desmos and see what happens. Okay, so now that I've graphed that point, what I want you to see is that all those same points exist on this graph. Okay, so I've got this point here, negative 2, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, so all those points exist. So it's important first, guys, that we're able to generate these points on the graph. Okay, it's also important that we're able to graph them, and we'll work on a couple of those in class as well. All right. All right, last thing we would need to talk about is identify the x and y intercepts. Now this, let's talk about something here real quick. The x-intercept, okay, x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, and what I know is that any point along an x-axis has a y value of 0. So the y value is always 0. Okay, and the y-intercept is just the opposite. Okay, so then the y-intercept, that's where the graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, and at that point, x values, x value is always 0. Okay, so we'll talk more about that as the semester goes on, but we want to just be able to look at a graph and identify that. So if I look over here, okay, on part number A, we want to identify the x and y intercept. So my x-intercept is going to be here, okay, and I'm just going to label that. That's my x-intercept. Here is my y-intercept, okay. So what we can write is that our x-intercept is negative 3, or you could simply write the point negative 3 comma 0, okay. The y-intercept is the value of 5, okay, and that's the point 0 comma 5. All right, so those are locations, okay, where the graph crosses the x or y axis. Okay, here we have a y-intercept. We don't have any x-intercepts, okay, so we have a y-intercept, okay, we can label it like that, and our y-intercept is going to be at the value of 4. We can also call that 0 comma 4, and the y and there is no x-intercept, so no x-intercept. Okay, over here, the interesting thing about this one is that the x and y intercept is the same. So not only is this an x-intercept, it's also a y-intercept because it crosses at the origin. Okay, so in this one, your x-intercept is 0, okay, also known as 0, 0, and your y-intercept is at 0. Okay, and we'll call that point 0 comma 0. All right, so that's it. All right, so guys, we got to be able to plot points, plug values into an equation and graph those, and then identify x and y intercepts. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.